بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر.
No, we are limited to what we find rational or reasonable according to often so many factors. Our understanding of the subject, our knowledge, our predispositions, our upbringing, everything has an influence on what we find reasonable or unreasonable. And that's what I'm trying to say to you. Let's move it away from the subjective range of, it's unacceptable to you, but it's acceptable to me, right? But that's subjective, isn't it? So let's move it away from the subjective range to something that's more analytical or empirical. Could this Qur'an, as it's constructed, have come from anyone other than God? And God is asking you that question in the Qur'an. And Allah is saying to you, if it has, then you come up with where it's come from. And Allah says, and with a surety you won't be able to. You won't be able to come up with anything other than it's come from God. Because at the time of the Prophet Muhammad, peace upon him, they said to him, he's mad. Then when the verses started coming down, they thought, hold on a second. These are not the words of a madman. These are just the beauty, the eloquence, the message is too powerful. So then they said he's a liar. Then when they said, hold on, he's not a liar because he's Al-Amin. For 40 years we knew that this was the most honest and noble of all of us. So they said that won't wash. So then they ended up saying, this is magic. They didn't even realize that they had moved one step towards belief, because now they've accepted that it's not human making, it's not human characteristics, it's not human understanding, it's not human comprehension. They sent the best poet at the time. They said, find out where he's getting these words from. So he goes and talks to him, he finds out the Qur'an, here's the Qur'an, and he says, he goes back. They say, is he a liar? He's not a liar. Is he this? He's not that. Is he that? He's not that. Then what is he? Tell us. You're the best of all of us. He said, my poetry is better than all of yours combined. This is not poetry. But the only thing you can say, it's magic. And isn't that amazing? Magic is when you pull a rabbit out of a hat. It's not words. Yes? But when you claim the words are magic, because at the time the Arabs were linguistic masters of poetry, they value two things: the birth of a boy and the birth of a poet. And when Muhammad comes down with his Qur'an, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they knew immediately. No, pagans for centuries, why would they listen to Muhammad? If it was just any other poetry or any other nonsense, why would they be convinced? Why would they fight on behalf of Islam and sacrifice their lives for a message from a man if they didn't truly believe that, this is not just some poetry, these are not just some fancy words, this is the amazing, it could have only come from Allah, because they understood the language, they understood the way the language, when Muhammad comes down with the Qur'an, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, through wahi, through the Qur'an, at that time there were some 9 or 11 grammatical constructs of how you could construct the language. The Qur'an came down and it turned everything on its head, because it didn't conform to any of those structures. It was a new way of speaking the language. And then Arabic, the most eloquent Arabic, changed to the Quranic Arabic discourse, because that became the purest Arabic. How does a man in a desert in the 7th century, herding goats, never known for any poetry, never known for any text, come with a text that till today Allah challenges? If it's not from God, then you come up with a chapter like it.
And I've always been interested in that claim. So you've done a wonderful monologue. You should have been on a ladder there.
Yes.
But
I don't like ladders. Too high for me.
I hear this from Muslims a lot. Bring a chapter like it. My question is, what is the criteria that you would accept in order for me to bring a chapter? Not me personally, but somebody to bring a chapter that you would accept. Because it seems to me that's an impossible task.
But that test is not for you.
Oh, who's it for?
The Arabs.
So only for believers? Or?
No, Arabs. No, because
only for Arab speakers, you mean?
Well, because you have to understand the language, right? If I translate French poetry into English, it's not going to have the sweetness of the message, right?
That's a different position that you're taking. Because when I hear that from some Muslims, it's almost like they're asking me personally, and I go, hey, I'll bring you something in English.
There's two criteria. Right. The first criteria is for the Arab. The second criteria is for you.
Okay.
Secondly, if this book was written by any other than Allah, inside you'll find any contradiction and error.
Okay. So it's not that I need to bring a verse. I need to find a contradiction or error.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Okay. Because that hasn't been clear from other people saying.
Now the thing is,
Now the amazing thing is, sorry, the Arabs haven't done it, by the way. Carry on.
and there are many Arabs, even today,
Arab Christians.
Yeah.
you know, they're atheists, and the reality is that the evidence is not just about the evidence is not just about poetry or it rhymes, but the constructs that I've discussed with you, the contracts that I've discussed with you, all the facets, you can't get them. And so the question that has to arise is this: how does a man in a desert in the 7th century come up with a text? And it is a very bold claim.
It sure is.
You know, for an illiterate man, ummi, cannot read or write, to challenge the best poets of his time, that if this is not from God, then you come up with a reason as to God, and then challenges them again. That if you can produce a verse like a chapter like it, and he's challenging who? The people at the time who were the best poets that existed, right? And he himself is illiterate. So these claims, this Qur'an, the way that it's constructed, I'll give you a few examples. One example.
No, please don't.
Just one example. Just one.
I'm gonna fall asleep here.
Just one
Sorry.
example. Just one example. Surah Baqarah, 286 verses.
Yes.
I told you it was revealed over 10 years. Simultaneously, other chapters are being revealed. Simultaneously. The Prophet ﷺ will say, these verses pertaining to this chapter, these verses pertaining to this chapter. And yet it conforms perfectly in symmetry to Section 1 relates to Section 6, Section 2 relates to Section 4, Section 3 relates to Section 2 relates to Section 7. And it comes down to the middle, and in the middle ayah, orally transmitted over 10 years, simultaneously while other chapters are being revealed, and Allah chooses a verse, Allah has chosen the middle ground for you, the middle path for you. Where does that verse come? The word middle only appears once in 286 verses, and it appears in the 143rd verse right down the middle. That's not one example. The Quran is scattered with thousands of examples like that. How does a man in the desert in the 7th century, just on memory alone, he's on a camel, he gets a wahi, he says it to the people, this is the ayah of the Quran and it refers to this. And in those days there's no verse numbers, there's no chapter numbers, they learn it all orally. How does he do it? So these are the sort of questions that I think, if we're truly humble, we need to address, we need to look at. There are many other facets of evidence as well that support, grammar, as I said, the construction in terms of symmetry and concentric patterns and parallelism, and then as a reasonable human being come up to a conclusion as to where you think it's come from. And if you think it's beyond the capacity of human beings, which I truly believe through my investigation, not just following it blindly, even though I am a Muslim, yes, right? These questions should be, I think, addressed by an individual, rather than referring to, what happened at the Big Bang, how did God create the universe, did he do it from himself, did he just say it and it happened? Because ultimately those are not empirical questions, and those questions may never be answered until we die, and then God reveals to us how he did things, right? If he chooses to do so. But what we do have is the Quran, which I say is a miracle, which you can test, because you can hold in your hand, you can analyze, you can investigate, you can get people what they say about it, challenge it, and it's tangible, it's there, right in front of you. And it takes away this subjective realm of, I don't accept cutting off of your hand, or marrying somebody at that age. Those are all subjective things. If God said it's okay, and you can prove that God said it, then it's okay. Halas, finished, no discussion. You understand my point? I've got to quickly pray, I've got like 2 minutes, I'm really sorry. Rob? I just realised, look at the sun, sorry.
Thanks.
Should we carry on?